Hey everyone, welcome everyone to the 2024-2025 Lucille Cobb Memorial Lecture here at Doane University. This event is funded annually by an endowment in memory of Dr. Cobb, a professor of English here from 1959 to 1969. The series is intended to broaden public awareness of the art of thoughtful writing by talented authors and scholars. I want to shout out my wonderful English colleagues at Doane, Phil and Brad, for their gracious assistance in making this special evening a reality for us. The Cobb Memorial Lecture Series has had many venerable names attached to it, including Sony last year already, but we brought him back. I'm excited to add poet, translator, and executive director of Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures, Sony Ton Aime, to that list once again. I am Melanie Ritzenthaler. I'm an assistant professor of practice here in the English department in my third year. I have the pleasure of meeting Sony in the summer of 2022 when I worked with him at the Chautauqua Institution in Chautauqua, New York, in his role as the director of literary arts. For those that might not know, Chautauqua is a nonprofit that brings tens of thousands of visitors to their summer assemblies since the 1800s. Visitors can expect to be educated and enriched by the variety of speakers and performers they bring in. For me at Chautauqua in 2022, this oftentimes interdisciplinary experience was as informative as it was energizing, and Sony was always at the center of that. For Sony, writing, reading, literature encapsulate more than just his roles as poet and executive director, which is to say it would be doing him a disservice to suggest his work is just that, work. Sony's life's work has in many ways been about sharing the gift of writing with others. This has drawn in readers of all ages, from working with children at schools and youth-serving institutions, to the lifelong learners of Chautauqua, to the work he's done co-founding an online journal that originated in publishing the works of inmates at the Lake Erie Correctional Center, where he led poetry workshops. And thinking about the power of literature and writing, I think Sony has shown that accessibility, community, and the conversations that can come from them are often where the meaningful work happens. Sony's enthusiasm for this kind of work is unparalleled, and it has always been incredibly inspiring to see in practice. In bringing Sony to Doane, I hope his experiences and wisdom can act as a North Star of sorts as to how our liberal arts education makes passionate lifelong learners of us across and through disciplines, encouraging communication, collaboration, creativity, and vulnerability, and how that is not just a feature of our time at Doane, but the intended design. Sony Ton Aime is a Haitian poet, essayist, and translator. In addition to a chapbook, he is the author of the Haitian Creole translation of Olympic hero, the Lennox Kilgore story, and has a forthcoming collection of poetry with Carnegie Mellon University Press. He is the co-author of the Haitian Creole course on Duolingo. He received his MFA in creative writing and poetry, as well as a bachelor's degree in business administration from Kent State University in Ohio. He is currently the executive director of Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures, hosting its 10 evenings and words and pictures programming, amongst many others. Following Sony's remark, we'll have time for questions. Everyone, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Sony Ton Aime.
Thank you so much for that. What a lovely introduction. And I wish my mom were here to see this. I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I'm so thankful that you brave this cold weather out here. I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the wonderful people here at Doane University who made this possible. Ms. Melanie, Glad, Phil, President Hughes, and all of you. I have been in awe at the beauty of your campus. I saw these wonderful buildings, and so far the ghosts seem to like me. I've heard so many great stories about this university, and the thing that you're doing here is really revolutionize the education system, and I'm so happy to give the 2024-25 Lucille Cobb Memorial Lecture. I was reminded last night that I might be the least well-known speaker. Tim Walden is here, but it is an honor to be here, and I believe what you're doing, the work that you're doing, is very much in line with what I want to do with my life. And again, thank you. Last year, during my Lucille Cobb Memorial Lecture, I talked a little bit about why the humanities, especially the English major, is so important for the university, for our society. I talked about this importance and how we are facing many challenges. Many challenges. I'm sad to say that not much has changed. There are a lot of challenges ahead, and the only thing that really we can see that change is now the whole education system is kind of under threat, right? And I hope that is not going to stay the case. But I do believe that you here, the English majors, people in the humanities, are the ones really to fix this problem that we're facing. I do not need to tell you, you know already, you're the most resilient people. You're in the business of making beauty out of thin air, out of wood, right? So there's nothing you cannot fix. My lecture really today is more going to be about how I see us facing it and how we can be bolder. Last year, I said that English is the mother of all majors. It is still true. We are the foundation of the college experiment. What we do is what university was meant to do. We are presented with the chance to take the lead now and remind the country why we started this experience in the first place and why it is indispensable. Like an elder with much wisdom and experience, looking at younglings feverishly trying to reinvent the wheel, it is our duty to tap them on the shoulders and remind them that the wheels are already made. They only need to be tended to. I know some might say it is my job to encourage people to engage with the arts because as an art administrator, my livelihood depends on it. And that will be right. But it is not only my livelihood that depends on it, but the future of this experience for the United States. As I bring the writers that I invite to my lecture series to our local schools, I have seen the moments of deep connections between the writers and the students. I have read the students' testimonies on how they too want to become writers, thinkers, to present alternative to and build new worlds, only for them to catch themselves minutes later and to declare that they don't have the luxury to study something so lofty. They need to become productive members of society, as if the deep moments of learning they have just experienced, the glimpses into better world they were offered to them and by someone who present those lofty ideas were nothing. As if this moment were not some of the most productive of their intellectual lives. I'm deeply preoccupied with this feeling on our part to assert the true relevance of what we do. I purposely refrain from saying the value of what we do because the value is obvious and everyone knows it. The difficulty lies in how society
connects this value to the lives and livelihood of its members. It does not matter how many successful writers, artists, and intellectuals that are introduced to these students, they still struggle to see their future selves in them. This, I suspect, is because their idea of success is that of individuals and not to their ideas of fields. By that I mean, because we as a society have neglected the role of critical thinking, of engaging with ideas, which is the work of the English major, because we have overlooked the role of the humanities, we have become enamored with personalities and the product that they invent, instead of critically think about the role of these products. We have come to see individuals like podcasters, Silicon Valley personalities, politicians, not as people to be in conversation with, but signs to follow, to worship, and in some cases, to emulate. This is antithesis to the work of the humanities, where one is asked to be always in conversation by critiquing and building on the work of others. Instead, what we're seeing now is a desire to come up with the next brilliant invention. And the more disconnected it is to the current ones, the better. This is, of course, important, but it can be dangerous if there is not much critical thinking behind it. We are more preoccupied with the product than the process of production. This is an important point, I think. Often, even in the academia, we believe that by outproducing and outcompeting in the market, we will become relevant. We will save our fields. If we can publish just 2 more books on this or that topic, or get the students to publish just a couple more essays connected to this new and shiny thing, they will see how great school is. I do not think this is going to get us far. And case in point, 3 days ago, I read an article about how some universities in the Southwest region of the United States were rebranding their humanities as job-friendly. I was sad to read the article because it implies that the humanities are currently not job-friendly. The article went to say that that's an uncharacteristic role for humanities professors who have tended to resist suggestions that it's their role to ready students for the workplace. Did they interview any professors for this article? Right, I'm sure, as you know, you're all preparing students for the workplace, and you are really sending some of the best workers out there. But that's what the talk is out, that students who are in the humanities are not ready for the workplace. This was not actually my main problem with this strategy, however. And I have to mention here that I think the author, probably an English major, was trolling the whole universities, because they said that, and I quote, "The university were hoping to reverse decades of plummeting enrollment in subjects that teach skills employers say they need from graduates but aren't getting," which means employers were looking for students from the humanities. Right. What saddened me is the complete capitulation of these humanities administrators to the sciences and business. The article opens with this sentence: "A student was hesitant at first to add French to a major in finance, fearing that it wouldn't be useful in the labor market." There's a lot to unpack here, but due to time, let us only acknowledge the centrality of the finance major and the uncertainty around the importance of learning another language. The latter part is in itself worth writing an essay about, but again, we're not here to be productive. Instead, I want to emphasize on the real work done within the humanities, making knowledge with imagination and rigorous conversations. And building the future, the work of the humanities comes first. It is on us to imagine the world, the finance, the engineer, the physics majors will build. Unlike what the article argues that the humanities are a good addition or a resume decoration for the other fields, the humanities are central to every job prospect. Our job is not to follow the market, but to regulate it and shape its direction. To do so, we need to be less timid and more determined on our advocacy. We should not play defense by showing how helpful we can be to the others, to the doers. This is, of course, important to point out because we do that. But we need to point out what society is missing by undervaluing our work. In this moment of uncertainty, as the world is losing its way and everything seems directionless, it is our duty to step in and take the wheel by offering the platform to critically think about new ways of doing and of being. Very often we are criticized for doing just that. This is too lofty, too impractical. It is a luxury that we cannot afford in a cutthroat market. It is leisure. To that I say, yes, it is leisure, and it is indispensable. Not just leisure for the leisure's sake, but as a tool of learning. Besides, young people, members of Gen Z, do not want to be just productive. Try to hire people from this generation, and you will learn quickly that the product that you offer is only half important to them. The intellectual stimuli they experience and how socially engaged your environment is what sustains them. This is not something unique to Gen Z, by the way. Every generation before them, right, had expected that in their lives. It is only shown as a symptom in this generation because what used to offer this reward to other generations is no longer around. In the past, previous generations used to find this stimuli in what we call the third place, outside of the home in the workplace. In the past couple of years, however, we have seen a dismantling of these places like libraries, social clubs, book clubs, community gathering, and even now coffee shops. With the disappearance of these places, Gen Z are looking at the workplace for a substitution. In my case, growing up in Haiti, I had the chance to enjoy one such third place that has a really great influence on me and shaped the way I live my life and the way I see the world. In a lot of ways, it worked like the English classroom. And like in the United States, it is slowly disappearing. If you have been to Haiti, you probably know about the bars. It is a place where everything and nothing happens. You should be able to find at least one bar in every neighborhood in Haiti. The bars is usually by a tree near the road, beneath a makeshift tent, or anywhere with some good shade to protect you from the Caribbean sun. It is usually composed of teens to folks in their late 30s. It is a kind of gathering place where people come and go, trading all manner of stories, from local gossip to fantastic otherworldly folktales. Sometimes these stories generate fierce debates. The bars is not a writing or reading club. We do not consider the rhythm or cadence of one's speech or writing unlike school. Far from it, a good number of us are elementary school dropouts. We are a truly democratic bunch. There is no pretense or affected French accent in our speech. What we have is an equality of voices and real distribution of and preponderance of free speech. I mean it when I said that it was the place where everything and nothing happened. More accurately, everything was discussed and nothing was done. But it is important nonetheless. Once in 2015, when I was back home, I, a 24-year-old, started an argument with a local 15-year-old boy on why an Argentinian soccer player had a better year than a Brazilian player. Both were playing in Europe, and their success would not have any real impact on our lives. But that's the way it goes in the bars. After an hour or two, the argument was in full force, and each of us had attracted on our side no less than 10 people. Eventually, I grew hungry and left to get lunch. 1 hour later, I came back, and the same argument was still going strong with almost completely different people on both sides. Right? By then, the argument was slightly altered. Instead of a better year, now it was my favorite soccer player was overall a better player than the Brazilian. I did not agree with this new premise, but most importantly, my best friend, who I loved teasing, was on the side of the Argentinian player. Mind you, this is my favorite player. So obviously, I decided to go against my previous side. Again, this is how it goes in the back. It was a place where one goes to hone his critical skill, to learn, and to become a better storyteller. This was my third place of education growing up. It was a poor substitute to the English classroom, but it played an important role in my formative years. I want to posit that these places are disappearing exactly because the humanities have been neglected. As fewer and fewer students are being asked to engage in reading and discussions in class, they come to have no interest in joining these places once they leave school. They are not being trained to form community. Instead, as they leave school, they are only prepared to be workers. Right? As they reach their goal, becoming a worker, that's it, they come to realize that it is not enough. They can feel something is missing. Their lives are not as fulfilling. They become lonely and unpleasant. They realize that they were lied to, that the advice to stay away from the humanities and to study something useful was a lie. They become resentful of college. So when someone tells them that school is not worth it, they are more likely to agree. Thus, why the whole education system is being threatened right now. Because as we are leaving the school, we do not continue this lifelong learning process, and then school is just a burden, something that happened that is not will sustain us. This is of course not true. School is the best place to acquire knowledge, and knowledge is still necessary to have a good functioning society. Instead of doing away with school all the way, we only need to look back at what has worked in the past, and it is to center the English major. This is how you make humanities relevant. It is by telling this story clearly to our society. It is not by telling students that adding French as a minor will guarantee them a job, although it will, but you need to make sure that they know it is a way for them to fulfill their whole life, to enjoy their whole life, and to make them a whole complete person. And this is going to be with them for the rest of their lives. It is by showing them that the sense of leisure they seek in their studies and lives is not something frivolous that can threaten their livelihood, but the very thing that will sustain them in their community. For education and leisure are paramount in keeping one happy. The education part, I hope, is self-exploratory. We all understand the role of knowledge to form and inform citizenry. Leisure, on the other hand, is more complicated to justify. Yet, without it, it does not matter how well educated one is, something will always feel amiss. Therefore, a good education system should offer some sort of leisure outside of the grind of the market. School should be a place of learning and of relaxing. Humanities are the place that offer this. Your teachers were telling me last night about an initiative that you have undertook when gathering around the fire and reciting poems and telling stories. This, my friends, is the thing that you're most likely to remember after you leave this hall. While you cannot add them to your resume, these moments of leisure are what you will bring to your workplace that will improve the lives of everyone around you and increase production. This education that you're receiving is not just for your own benefit. Your aim is not only to become the next great inventor, your aim is also to work with others to leave everyone's boat. It is to continue to critically think about the well-being of your community and convince others to your point of view, which is what you do when you write an essay, right, for your classes. It is to imagine better stories and become better storytellers. Last year, I encouraged you to be storytellers, and I'm here to do the same again. And I still believe that the humanities are where we can better hone our skills of storytellers, as storytellers. This is not to say that the university is the only place to foster the love of storytelling, debating ideas, and creating knowledge. As we just saw, the bars can offer that as well. However, they are less structured and are disappearing. It is now more important than ever for the university to take the lead. With its structures and methods, it is the best place to mold the mind of our future leaders. It is the best place where one can learn about the storytellers of the past who molded their future, i.e. our present, so we too can write our own. Note that I did not say the university is the best place to mold workers of the futures. I said to mold the mind, for all work is the product of the mind. The reason that we tend to differentiate them is due to the lack of good storytelling. Our job is to tell a better story about work, to redefine what work is. Another note that I believe is important here is what I mean by storytelling. It is not only the social act of sharing stories with others, although this is part of it, but most importantly, for our context today, it is the act of making meaning. We are all used to aphorism like our lives are made of stories. It is true. We are the stories that we tell ourselves or others tell of us. This is how we explain the world around us. If we were to believe Stuart Hall, and I encourage you to do, the events in our lives and the products of our work and themselves have no importance until we assign meaning to them. And when we do that, And the way we do that is by contextualizing them and within the stories we tell. Your Professor Phil reminded me yesterday that when it comes to AI, we should not be afraid of it, right? We should only be afraid of it if we humans feed it dangerous stories. And I agree completely. The task then is to decide which story is dangerous. This is, again, the work of the humanities. The structure of the English classroom allows for different voices and offers the training to think critically by questioning our own and others' assumptions. It provides a plurality of opinions that, while it does not guarantee the best solution, bring us closer to a common goal. The English class is then a microcosm of democracy. I'm reminded of the first time I heard about the company name Palantir. I thought that it is what happened when you have a room with no English majors in it. As a Lord of the Rings fan, I knew that Palantir is the tool that the evil guys who want to control the world use. The good guys warn us against it. While it is cool and shiny, the implications behind it is kind of evil. An English major would have asked the CEO to think a bit more critically about it. I had become even more worried when I learned about the products, spywares that can track one's phone. Again, an English major in the room would have bring Aime César's essay discourse on colonialism and warns of what he called the boomerang effect, that what we allow to do unto others has the potential to turn against us. There are real dangers to us standing on the sidelines as English majors, as people in the humanities. It is a luxury that we as a society can scarcely afford. It is time for us to take the lead by sounding the alarm. If you are too meek and believe that you should not toot your own horn, see it this way. It is not just your fields that need saving, but the whole experience we call civilization, we call the university. It is on us to charter a new part. It is on us to write a new future. It is on us to show that this future can only be written in collaboration with everyone, with the critical thinking that the English major afford to its students. I thank you all for your time, and I would love to answer some of your questions. And again, it's such a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you. Any questions? Hey, Matt.
Can you talk about what some of those skills are that storytelling or reading or any of those kinds of humanities skills? What
Yeah.
how those kind of solve problems or how those can be leveraged,
Yeah.
whether it's in a job or just to solve some of these problems.
Yes, no, that's a great question. And these skills really are things that you do not see, you cannot really put into words because they do not create these tangible things that you can hold, right? Or some of them really create a laptop, right? But they do not really create this laptop, right, in that way. But the person creating the laptop needs the skills because everything that we create
are going to be used by human beings, right? And therefore, you cannot create something without the skills that the English major provide. And that is, by reading, you get to learn about human beings, you get to connect with people, you get to improve your capacity for empathy, you get to improve your capacity to really imagine new world, right? Imagine a future where this laptop with the skills, the manual skills that you can learn as a computer scientist or really, but you use it in a way where it is friendly for people to use, right? And that is a skill that where the English major can afford you to do that because you have gone through in ways where you read stories, you are in conversation with other people, and you have a clear idea of what people are like and what people are looking for, right? So therefore, when you think about how to use a laptop, you have a better idea than just building keys and screen, right? It's how people are going to use this. And people can use this to do good and to do bad. By having the training of thinking, of critically think about things, you kind of can think and envision how someone will use this, either to do good or to do bad, and build within it something that will correct or that will improve the way someone uses it, right? So it is because it's so abstract, right? And of course, good writing skill, right? And good speaking skill, those are things that you can see, those are things that you can hear. But deeper in that, it's the helping of empathy, the helping of the knowing of the human nature, of knowing our past, of knowing our present that can help us to envisage a future, right? That will help us very much in that way when we build things, right? When we build things, then they come and they help humanity as a whole instead of really destroying it, right? So that's really when it comes to the English major, when the role of the English major in that way, because it allows us everything that we can think of this world, we can think of making, there is an element of the human use of it, right? And we can do things to really benefit the whole, and we can do things to destroy it. And by thinking critically about it, right, allows us to do that. That does not mean that an engineer, right, cannot think critically about it, but the main function of the humanities is really to do that, right? So those are the key skills. And what, like I said about being a good storyteller, and a way of convincing other people, right, to do the things that you have discussed, right? And how do you argue with people to convince them to be on your side? Because, you know, if a shiny thing is in front of me, right, it can be very difficult for me not to use it or not to want it. So to have someone to convince me not to do, right, to go in, it takes skills. And the skills are really honed in the classroom and conversations and those things that we think as luxury, as wasting time, right? But,
This is piggybacking off of his question a little bit, but would you say that like the answer to that question is what you find the importance of humanities in other areas like engineering or science is like that critical thinking aspect? Would you say that's like the most important thing to transfer over if you were to have both of those?
yeah, it's one of the most important ones, but like I said, when it comes to writing skills, communication, right, and telling stories, right, and being imaginative in a way, because to be imaginative and that way of thinking is takes a lot of training, right? It takes a lot of practice to do. And a lot of time, we spend so much time in doing than the thinking part that it is important for us to bring in people whose job is really to think about different things. So it is not just critical thinking, but it's how do we share our ideas in a way. Once we are done thinking critically about it and we get a lot of people to really share ideas, how do we effectively share those ideas and convince other people to really put them into practice, right? So I think those are the two things. You cannot just be a great thinker. There have been a lot of great thinkers, but they did not share their ideas or they did not write them down, right? We don't have them anymore to benefit from. So it's not only to create knowledge, but it's to share knowledge, you know. Again, my whole job is actually to bring those thinkers, bring those storytellers in front of people, and so they can share. And it's very much and my benefit to encourage you to do just that. But what I've seen is every time a group of people come together to discuss ideas, you can see a transformation within them, right? It is not selfish thing for the person, but you can see how societies have changed just by creating places where people can come to create ideas, right? We have democracy because of that, because there were a lot of greats who had plenty of time in their hands to have arguments in public places, right? And they come with new ways of governing, right? So I think it is really important. And like I said, instead of really showing what we can offer, it's what are we losing? What are we in danger of losing by not really facilitating this, right? By not emphasizing on the importance of the humanities and the importance of us taking time to read, to write, to think, right? And to be in community with us.
Sony, at dinner last night, you mentioned a new reading club or a new reading group initiative. And I was so taken by that. I wondered if you could tell that story of, you know, what you expected it to be versus what it really turned out to be, and what that might say about a kind of unspoken, yet to be verbalized need that's not currently being met.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Bill. In my position, when I started my new position, and that's my 16 months, and in this position, it was end of 2023. I left Chautauqua and I went to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is the mid-sized city. And they did not have a book read initiative in the city, right? I'm sure that you have one book, one city, or one book, one campus initiative where everyone is reading one book. They did not have that. So I said, we should. And I chose a book with an author who I invited to my programs, and I said, everyone should read this book because it was about mental health in the United States and the history of mental health in the Black community. It was very similar to how we treated mental health in Haiti as mental illness in Haiti, the shame that is attached to it, the stigma that is attached to it. And the author was proposing new ways of how the community can come together really to deal with mental illness, right? So I said, like, okay, this is a book I think everyone should read. It is part of the history that we did not know, and it explains why a lot of African Americans are very skeptical when it comes to going to a therapist, right, to talk about mental illness, right? It explained the history of that. So I said maybe 100 people will come together to read it, and I push it. The first thing that I did was to contact a lot of organizations in town. It's organizations that were either working in mental health or adjacently working with people with mental illness. So I reached out to them, and 18 of those organizations said yes, they would participate, right? And then I reached out to a grant making organization, and I said, like, I think we have something here. Some folks might want to read this book and through their organizations. And I asked very optimistically to buy 400 books, right? So the idea was everyone who wants to participate will get a free copy of the book, and then they will read it, and then we'll come together, we'll discuss it. 800, more than 800 people participated, right? From May last year till 2 weeks ago, people were reading the book. And the last 2 weeks we spent having discussions. Some 200 people came to discuss the book in person. And while we were discussing the book, we were hearing from people who were telling us that members of the families, right, were in that hospital. There's Asylum in Brownsville, Maryland, right? One person worked in the hospital, and a lot of people were telling us that they did not know some of the members of the families were in asylum as well, right? And they only learn about it after reading the book, and they would have conversation with the families, and the families members are like, oh yeah, your uncle was in one of this hospital. And I said, which uncle? The uncle that they never told them about, right? So that's, and that comes together, and people were very much asking, what next? By what next is what other books that I'm going to choose next year, but also what can they do, right? What can they do? And one thing that I was really moved by was a lot of people were asking organizations in town, right, to do something, right? To do something. They will go to the organization, do something. And one hospital, a psychiatry hospital that we have in town, they are reading the book right now, and they're going to have the discussions next week. They told me that people came to the hospital to visit patients who are in the hospital because they read the book, right? And they were curious to see how the patients were doing, right? And so that's, again, the building of community, but also the building of empathy, of people finally learning and say, like, I need to check on perfect strangers, right? And that is the thing when it comes to reading and community, right? Reading together, that create a sense of vulnerability, but also create a sense that you are among other people that you share a lot with, right? And again, I'm sure you will come together and you read a story in your class, and then you will hear a classmate, right, talking about what they took from the book, and realize that you also did, and you realize that you share something with this person that you never talked with, right? So this moment creates opportunities for us to relate to other people, and then to be more open as a society, and to see truly the value of the education that you're learning. It's not just to make things, but it is a way of living, right?
if you don't have any questions, or if you're like me, shy, you can always talk with me after. But thank you so much.
But, you know,